Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we really try to cut through the noise, get to the core of what's truly important. Today, we're setting our sights on the Pacific Northwest. We're zeroing in on a team making some pretty significant waves with its roster moves lately, the Seattle Seahawks. And this isn't just, who's in or who's out. It's really about what these decisions tell us about their strategy, their future, and maybe the players they truly believe in as they kind of forge this new identity.
That's exactly right. We're not just scanning headlines here. Our mission for you, the listener, is really to move beyond that surface level news and truly understand the why behind the what. We'll explore the strategic implications, maybe uncover some surprising player developments, and get an outsider's look at how the Seahawks team philosophy is evolving.
Yeah.
Think of it as your shortcut to understanding the complex chess game of NFL team building.
Yeah, the chess game. Good way to put it. And to help us decode all this, our deep dive today is pulling insights from the Sports Talk Extra YouTube channel, specifically their video titled, "Seattle Seahawks Just Got Exactly What They Needed." We've basically extracted the key nuggets from their analysis of these recent roster adjustments, and we're ready to unpack them. So get ready for maybe some aha moments that'll give you a fresh perspective on what it really takes to build a competitive team in today's NFL.
Okay, so one of the most talked about decisions, and maybe a great place to start, involves the wide receiver room. The Seahawks recently cut wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Now, on the surface, releasing a veteran receiver like MVS, well, it might seem like a loss, or at least a kind of curious move. But the analysis from our source argues pretty strongly, actually, that it's good news for Seattle.
And that's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Because it forces you to look beyond just the transaction. What's truly insightful here, I think, is that this move isn't seen as a step back. It's framed more as a strong affirmation of their internal development. Our source suggests it signals huge confidence in their younger players. Like, they believe guys like Torrey Horton and Derek Young, both developing receivers, are, quote, developing at a rate that you want to see.
Yeah, essentially outpaced expectations is the idea. And they're viewed as having a higher ceiling, meaning, more untapped potential that the coaches feel they can unlock.
Right, and it also says a lot about the consistency they're seeing from other young guys too, right?
Exactly. Jake Bobo, for instance, apparently keeps getting positive mentions for consistently putting together, quote, great days, great weeks in training camp. So when you have young players internally showing that kind of progress, well, it changes your calculus. It's not really about Scantling being a crash player, as the source puts it.
Right, and he got picked up fast.
Yeah.
Immediately. Yeah, he was immediately picked up by another team, which kind of validates his skill set,
Yeah.
Instead, it validates the Seahawks' internal talent assessment, their belief that their younger, homegrown guys are ready for bigger roles. It's definitely a bold move, banking on potential over, well, maybe established, but perhaps inconsistent production.
Absolutely. And this brings us to what could be a really game-changing insight about their whole offensive philosophy. The deeper analysis from our source suggests maybe a strategic shift away from relying so heavily on a singular, dominant number one guy. There's even a critique in the video about past reliance on players like DK Metcalf, described as being, quote, a stud for a week, but then, not really do anything for others. And look, Metcalf is undeniably talented, but maybe that kind of up and down production doesn't fit the new vision.
Precisely. And if you connect this to, well, the broader landscape of successful offenses in the NFL, a more diversified attack can be incredibly potent. So the emerging strategy seems to be building a receiving core with a bunch of twos. Now, that doesn't mean a collection of average players. It means multiple, highly capable receivers, each with the potential maybe to be a number one on any given Sunday, but without that pressure of having to be the focus every single play.
Like Jackson Smith and Jigba, maybe. Someone who just gets open.
Exactly. Think of players like JSN who consistently get separation, or even how Cooper Kupp, we'll talk more about him later, how he's operated effectively within a balanced system. Though, yeah, different context there.
That makes a lot of sense. So the goal becomes spread the ball around more.
Yeah, spread the ball around, get separation, and just move down the field more consistently, rather than always looking for that one deep shot or that one dominant target. This kind of diversified attack, it forces defenses to honor every receiving threat, makes them less predictable, harder to defend. It leverages collective strength over maybe individual heroics, which, could be a real hallmark of this new Seahawks identity.
Okay, and this fits with their other skill players too.
Absolutely. Our source gives a very positive, Yep, that's the quote, to players like running backs Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet, tight end A.J. Barner, and receiver Elijah Ayoyo. When you have an offense that can truly spread it around, get contributions from, a variety of positions, it just creates more mismatches, more opportunities. So this isn't just about the receivers, it's about the whole offensive ecosystem, designing it for sustained drives, using multiple threats, rather than, waiting for one big play from one star.
Okay, that's a really comprehensive look at the offense. Let's shift focus to the defense now. Let's talk about a strategic acquisition that really caught our source's eye. We're discussing the signing of a veteran linebacker to the active roster. He was actually featured pretty prominently in the video's thumbnail. And this was framed as a really significant move, not just like a minor roster tweak.
Yeah, and what's really telling here is the level of commitment this signing represents. The team didn't just sign him. They, quote, cut even an extra guy so that you can bring someone from another team. Now, that's a pretty bold statement in NFL roster management. It really indicates a high level of belief from the coaching staff.
Yeah, it tells you they must know him pretty well.
Exactly. It tells us they know a lot about this guy. They've seen him play at the pro level, and they're pretty convinced about his potential impact. They were willing to actively make space for him, which, speaks volumes about how they value his talent and maybe his fit.
And for anyone wondering about his profile, he's 28, former third-round pick, and he's definitely played in games. He's been around.
Yep. Went to North Carolina, history with the Vikings, Jets, and the 49ers.
Yeah.
So, not a rookie, but also not some aging veteran on his last legs. He brings that mix of experience and, crucially, what they see as untapped potential.
Okay, so what's the rationale there? Why bring him in specifically?
Well, this gets back to that higher ceiling idea. Our source frames this move as a belief that this new linebacker has a higher ceiling than the players who were cut. It's a strategic gamble on development, even for a guy who's been in the league a bit. The coaches feel, quote, there's a little more we can get out of them compared to players who might be maxed out.
Meaning they've hit their peak potential already.
Right. Even if they work hard, maybe that's as good as they'll get. This is a strategy, that teams like the Detroit Lions have used pretty successfully recently, meticulously scouting for players with specific traits they think they can coach up, develop beyond maybe what they showed elsewhere. It's a calculated risk for sure, but one that can pay off big if the coaching staff's evaluation is right. Okay, now here's where it gets particularly interesting, especially for, those of us watching the NFC West closely. Our source really emphasizes that reports of Cooper Kupp beating Devin Witherspoon in practices are, quote, so huge for the whole division. And that's not just like casual training camp talk. It has real implications.
Yeah, what makes this really fascinating is Kupp's recent journey, right? We all remember that historic 2021 season, just incredible numbers. But then came the injuries, 2022, 2023, even concerns heading into 2024. So for him to be performing at this level now, and specifically against a key Seahawks defender like Witherspoon, well, that's a huge indicator that he might be back, operating at an elite level despite his age and the injury history.
It really says something about his drive, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It speaks to the mental fortitude of a player like Kupp. Despite the physical setbacks, the age factor, he's clearly someone who, as the source puts it, wants to just beat his old team.
Yeah.
And feels he's still got stuff left in the tank. And the source notes, the Rams, despite his age and hamstring issues, are a smart franchise, implying this is a calculated risk on their part, a continued belief in his talent, and that competitive fire.
So this really heats up the rivalry again.
Definitely. If we connect this back to the Seahawks picture, this development, especially against a top player like Witherspoon, just adds another intense layer to those already fierce NFC West rivalries. Our source doesn't pull any punches, describing the sentiment towards other teams, expressing a strong distaste for the Rams and Niners, calling them tiresome rivals.
And the Cardinals.
Yeah, interestingly, the Cardinals are kind of overlooked in that specific rivalry narrative from the source. But look, when a rival's star player shows this kind of resurgence, it directly challenges your defensive schemes. It highlights the immense pressure the Seahawks are under. It basically dictates how you have to build your defense to counter that kind of proven elite talent right there in your own division.
Right. Okay, speaking of assets, maybe underappreciated ones, let's turn to something the Seahawks have that our source highlights as pretty rare and valuable in the league today: quarterback depth.
Yeah, this is a good point. They apparently have 3 legit quarterbacks with 1 clear starter. And our source really stresses this is a significant advantage, something you shouldn't, quote, take for granted.
It really is uncommon, isn't it? Most teams are scrambling if their starter goes down.
Totally. Most teams, according to the source, have won their starter, and then after that, it's like, I don't even know who the backup really is, let alone a viable third option. In a league where QB injuries are, well, a constant threat and can absolutely derail a season, having this kind of depth provides a massive safety net. It lets the team potentially weather unexpected storms, maybe manage a starter's health, without just a catastrophic drop-off. That's something a lot of franchises would envy.
And there's a strategic angle here too, right? Like trade value.
Exactly. This depth potentially presents valuable trade pieces. Our source points out that 5th round and 6th round picks are so much valuable now than they were, say, 20 years ago. Back then, those later rounds were often, seen as long shots. But today, with advanced scouting, analytics, the specialization of roles, teams are finding impact players much deeper in the draft. So a solid backup or developmental QB, especially one maybe with some starting experience, could easily command that kind of draft capital. It gives the Seahawks a real chance to acquire additional assets or maybe plug another roster hole down the line.
So it's flexibility, really.
Yeah, flexibility in their long-term planning, whether it's developing a future starter, just having that experienced backup security, or, gaining valuable draft picks. It really speaks to a smart, forward-thinking approach to managing, well, the most critical position in sports.
Okay, so when we piece all of this together, how does it translate into an overall initial assessment of the Seahawks roster based on what our source is saying?
Well, based on their first initial reactions, there are some clear positives. The skill position players get a definite check, which reinforces what we talked about earlier, that philosophy of building through a diversified, depth-focused approach across running backs, tight ends, and that revamped receiver group. They believe there's enough talent there to be really effective.
But still some question marks.
Oh, yeah. There are still areas that remain a focus, and rightly so. Our source emphasizes that the offensive line's got to be there. And that's not just, a general statement. It's critical for any team, but especially one looking to run a diversified passing game and establish a strong run game with 2 capable backs. Without that solid foundation up front, even the best skill guys can struggle. So, it remains an ongoing area of attention like it is for many teams.
Okay. What about defense?
The outlook there seems pretty strong, pretty confident. Both the defense as a whole and the secondary in particular are predicted to be good and great, respectively. And this positive assessment is significantly boosted, according to the source, by adding veterans, players like that linebacker we discussed, who bring experience and that perceived higher ceiling to the unit. It points to maybe a shift towards a more robust, experienced, and adaptable defensive identity.
And circling back to the division one last time.
Yep. The source reiterates those strong feelings about the NFC West rivals. Can't stand the Rams, can't stand the Niners, calls them tiresome, while noting again that no one really cares about the Cardinals in that same sort of heated rivalry sense. But that sentiment just underscores the incredibly fierce competitive environment the Seahawks operate in, and how building a team that can consistently contend in a division like that, well, it requires every single strategic move to be precise and impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. It really paints a picture of a team actively trying to shape its identity, responding to the division and investing in a specific vision for how to win.
Exactly. A fascinating snapshot.
So, what did we really discover in this deep dive into the Seahawks' recent moves?
Well, we've seen a calculated shift in their receiver philosophy, maybe moving away from just one number one guy towards a more diversified bunch of twos attack designed for consistency, maybe unpredictability. We saw that targeted acquisition of a veteran linebacker, reflecting a belief in untapped potential, that higher ceiling, even in experienced players. And we highlighted that rare strength in their QB room, kind of an underappreciated asset that offers both immediate security and future flexibility through trades. These aren't just isolated decisions, are they? They seem like pieces of a larger evolving puzzle, showing a team actively trying to shape its identity.
Yeah, it's a really interesting look at how a franchise tries to adapt, build for resilience, and, find an edge in this incredibly competitive league. So, given these strategic shifts, the new receiver philosophy, that targeted veteran acquisition, the underappreciated QB depth, how might these seemingly small, interconnected moves fundamentally alter the Seahawks' identity and their whole approach to winning? Could they be setting a new trend, maybe, in team building that prioritizes collective strength and untapped potential over just relying on traditional stars? Something for you to chew on until next time.